Hey algebra students, we're looking at 8.5, determining an equation of a line. And just to get us kind of back on track here, we want to take a look at our first warm-up. We want to find the slope and the y-intercept of 6x plus 4y equals 8, and then we're going to graph. So when you're asked for the slope and then the y-intercept and you have an equation, the easiest way to get both values is to solve for y and put it into that y equals mx plus b form. So we have the original equation and I want to solve for y. So I'm going to start by subtracting 6x from both sides. Now I write the negative 6x as the first term on the right because I want it to be in the y equals mx plus b form. So I want the x term to come before the constant. And then I'm going to divide all the terms by 4 to get the y by itself. Then I reduce the fractions. But I am going to leave that coefficient of x as a fraction so that its slope rise over run instead of changing it to a mixed number. Then I'm going to take the graph and say, okay, the y equals mx plus b form. And looking at this form, I should realize a couple of things. That my slope is negative 3/2 and my y-intercept is 0, 2. So I'm going to graph my y-intercept at 0, 2. It's a little big. And then I just go from that y-intercept and follow my slope. Now my slope is negative 3/2, so that would indicate that I should go down 3 and over 2. So I'm going to go down 3 and over 2 and put my other point. So down 3 over 2. And then I can draw my line by connecting those 2 points. So you've learned to graph a line given its equation, and now you're going to create an equation given information about the graph. So we'll be using the slope-intercept equation, which is y equals mx plus b. We need to look at the warm-up and try to decide what the variables will stand for. You actually should know already from class discussions that m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. So we're asked to write an equation of a line that has a slope of 2 and a y-intercept of 3. So if we just follow that form, y is equal to mx plus b, we can just plug in the slope and the y-intercept. So y equals, and m is the slope, and we want our slope to be 2. And b is the y-intercept, and we want the y-intercept to be 3. So we've created the equation y equals 2x plus 3. So the next one is your turn. You want to use the y equals mx plus b form and write an equation that has a slope of 4 and a y-intercept of negative 6. Enter your answer on Edpuzzle. You should have chosen y equals 4x plus negative 6. If you didn't and you still have questions, make sure you bring your question into your algebra teacher. So for the next example, it's a little different because it gives us the x-intercept instead of the y-intercept. So we have to think about our y equals mx plus b form, but we can't just plug in the 3 for b because b is the y-intercept, but the 3 is the x-intercept. But we're going to plug in what we can. So we have y equals, and we know the slope is -4, so we can plug that in for m. Now the other thing we know is that the x-intercept is 3. Now that means that the line crosses at the point 3, 0. 3 on the x-axis, 0 for the y, would cause the line to cross at the x-intercept of 3. So we can take that point and plug it in for the x and y. So 0 is equal to -4 times 3 plus b. So for this particular equation, that 0 can be put into the equation for x and y. And then we solve for b. So I get -12 plus b. And then I would add 12 to both sides. And b is equal to 12. So I can go back to the y equals mx plus b form and say, okay, the slope is -4. And I've now found that the b value, which is the y-intercept, is 12. So I use the slope and a point to find the equation. All right, so your turn for the next one. Write an equation of a line that has a slope of -3 and an x-intercept of 1/3. So remember, you're going to start with y equals mx plus b. Plug in what you have. You have the slope, which is the m. But we don't have the b value. We do, however, have a point of the x-intercept. And that means the line crosses at 1/3, 0. So you can plug in the 1/3 for x and the 0 for y. Solve for b and enter your answer on Edpuzzle. You should have gotten the results of 0 is equal to -3 times 1/3 plus b. And that gives us 0 is equal to, this would give us -1 plus b. And then you add 1 to both sides, and 1 is equal to b, or b is equal to 1. And so our equation is y is equal to -3x plus 1. Again, if you didn't get that, make sure you're taking your questions into your algebra teacher. Let's go through another example together. We want to write an equation that has a slope of -3/4 that passes through 8, -3. This time the point that they give us is not an intercept, but we handle it the same way. We start with y equals mx plus b, and we plug in the slope for m. Then we use our ordered pair for the point that we know passes, point that the line passes through, and we know that's x, y, and so we're going to plug those values in. So y is -3 when x is 8. So I'm going to plug in -3 for y and 8 for x. And then I can solve the equation for b. And I get 3. So I write my equation, y is equal to -3/4 for the slope, x plus 3 for b, which would then be the y-intercept. In the next example, you're to write an equation of the line passing through the points -2, 5, and 4, 8. This time they don't tell you the slope, but you do know how to find the slope. You can find the slope from the 2 points. Then use the slope and a point to find the y-intercept or the b value. So let's start with our slope formula. You know that you can take the y sub 2 minus y sub 1, so that would be 8 minus 5, over x sub 2 minus x sub 1, so that would be 4 minus -2. That simplifies to 3/6 and 1/2. So our slope is 1/2. So when I think about my equation form, y equals mx plus b, I can take 1/2 and substitute that in for the slope. Then I'm going to choose one of the points that they give me and plug in the x and y values to find b. I can use either point. I'm going to choose -2, 5, just because it's the first point they gave me, but you can use either one. So y is 5 when x is -2, and then I can solve for b. And it works out that b is 6. So I go back to my y equals mx plus b form, and I already figured out that the slope was 1/2. And now I know that the y-intercept is 6. Remember to take all your questions into your algebra teacher.